The Sixth Parliament wrapped up its work during April 2024, and the Seventh Parliament started work in June when the new members of Parliament were sworn in. Annelize Crosby, Head of Legal Intelligence at Agbiz, joins us now to give us a summary of important bills and policies and the effect that it will have on agriculture. Annelize, tell us a bit more about the purpose of the Expropriation Bill.
Okay, so the Expropriation Bill is only the tool that sets out the process of expropriation. So many people tend to think that the power to expropriate originates from the Expropriation Bill. That is actually not true. The only power to expropriate that bill grants is to the Minister of Public Works, and only for the purposes of public work, so within his or her own mandate. But there are over 200 other pieces of legislation that contain powers of expropriation, and all of those are granted for specific purposes which are within the mandates of the ministers or the entities to which it is granted. So this bill provides for due process. That means that it requires that notice be given of the intention to expropriate, that there be ample opportunity for consultation for the affected parties to be heard, to put their case forward, for valuation processes, for decisions then to be taken, and also for a court process if there is need to challenge any decision. Other than that, than providing for the process, the bill now also allows for expropriation at so-called null rand compensation, but that is only under certain circumstances which may be considered to be just and equitable, where all the relevant factors are weighed up.
Can you elaborate on the progress of the Plant Health Bill?
So the purpose of the Plant Health Bill is to bring South African legislation on plant health in line with the international agreements and treaties that South Africa is a signatory of. This bill provides for phytosanitary measures to prevent the introduction, establishment and spread of regulated pests, and also to safeguard South African agriculture and our plant natural resources. This bill has been approved by both houses of Parliament and is currently awaiting the President's signature.
And what benefits are there to the new climate change bill?
So climate change is affecting all of us now, and there is a lot of international pressure on all countries in the world to take measures to deal with climate change. So the purpose of this bill is to craft and implement our national climate change response. And that includes both mitigation measures as well as adaptation actions. So the bill places the legal obligation on every organ of state to coordinate their different policies, laws, and programs relating to climate change to bring it in line with the provision of the climate change legislation. So it's overarching legislation, but it has an impact on every single government function and government department. It will also oblige companies exceeding specific thresholds to report on their greenhouse gas emissions and to limit their emissions and remain within a specific carbon budget. And the bill furthermore provides for a national adaptation strategy and plan to be put in place. So basically this bill is our framework in South Africa to deal with climate change and to adhere to the international conventions on climate change.
What is the Agricultural Product Standards Amendment Bill, and has the bill been signed into law?
So the Agricultural Product Standards Act is an old piece of legislation. It stems from 1990. And it is intended to provide for control over the sale and export of certain agricultural products. It has to do with the classing and grading of these agricultural products, and it provides for inspection services to ensure that the classing and grading is done appropriately and adhered to. Now, these inspection services may also be done by so-called assignees. These are companies that are appointed by the department to act as the agent of the department to do inspections on behalf of the department. So the certain shortcomings were identified in this piece of legislation, partly because it is quite old, but also partly because in some of the subsectors, problems have been experienced with these assignees, and particularly the way in which they recover their costs for the inspections. So the bill will amend certain definitions. It will, amongst other things, provide for definitions for management control systems, but it will also, and this is a good thing, bring clarity to the process that must be followed by these assignees when they are setting their fees, and to provide for proper consultation in that whole process. This bill was approved by Parliament and it was signed into law on the 3rd of April this year.
And are there any other significant changes made which can affect the agricultural sector's future?
So we know that the 6th Parliament has now come to an end. It's finished its work, and the 7th Parliament is getting ready as we speak to start their work in earnest. We also know that the functions of agriculture, land reform, and rural development have now been separated, and we now have 2 ministries. So we need to see how all of this plays out. Are we going to see 2 departments once again? Are we going to have a dedicated agricultural department? I think a dedicated agricultural ministry is a good thing, because it allows for a lot of focus on the issues that the agricultural sector is struggling with. So that is probably positive. As far as legislation is concerned, there are a couple of the bills that were passed by the 6th Parliament, but they've not yet been signed by the President, such as the Expropriation Bill, Companies Amendment Bill, Preservation and Development of Agricultural Land Bill, and 1 or 2 others. So we're still awaiting the President's signature of those bills before they can come into force. And then, of course, we need to see, whether there are new policy developments under this new government. I think primarily what we need is implementation, not necessarily new policies and laws, but it's, we need to wait and see how all of this plays out now.
Annelize, in closing, where can we find more information?
Yeah, so Parliament itself has a website with a lot of information on it. And then the Parliamentary Monitoring Group is a very useful resource that I personally use a lot of the time. They have information on what bills are before Parliament. They have a bill tracker to tell you exactly where that bill is in the process. And they also send representatives to most of the meetings in Parliament, and they write notes on all of those meetings, some of which are publicly available without having to pay any subscription, but some of the committees are subject to paying a subscription to get access to that. But that is a very useful resource.
And that was Annelize Crosby from Agbiz giving us feedback on the parliamentary report of June this year.